Whoa! Hi everyone. Hi everyone. This is Jesse from Presley, and welcome to yet another PR Roundtable. And it's a beautiful sunny spring day over here in Leuven. So let me just quickly show this to you. This is our outside view at the moment. So why not take this time and go sit outside and spend the next hour with us, but sit in the sun. Let's make the most of having this working from home situation and use it to our advantage, right? And meanwhile, while you're kind of sitting on your terrace in the sun, hopefully we'll bring you some interesting facts and figures. We're pretty sure that we're going to break the record today as well with more attendees, because I can see there we're nearing 200 live attendees now, so that's pretty awesome. So we want to make sure that everyone can hear us really well. So share in the chat here below where you're joining from and what the weather is like over there where you're at, so we can kind of see that everything is working. Of course, we see Brussels, Toronto, UK, Romania. Oh, that's nice. Great. So share that in the chat. I've got Kate with me as well, as always, so she can kind of moderate the chat a little bit. If you have questions, she can answer them. Feel free to put them in the chat or in the question box, and we go from there. But it's great that so many of you joined, because we have a special guest on today. If people kind of joined before, usually we actually have two guests, and it becomes a little bit of a discussion. But when I started chatting with Dmitry a few weeks ago, he was so passionate about pitching. I said, listen, we can't have another guest on. We just need to do it completely with Dmitry, because he can't stop about it. He even built his company around helping people pitch. So I guess it won't be hard for us, Dmitry, to fill the hour. So welcome. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me, Jesse. Jesse and I are both part of this SaaS Academy too. So we got to know each other a bit. Yeah, it's nice. It's a beautiful day here as well. It's sunny. It's gorgeous, just like over there.
Cool. Good. That's awesome.
I got my water with me, so ready to chat.
Yep. Here we go. Water as well. So that's good. So you don't really kind of had a traditional PR career in the making, and it's something that oh.
Hello. I can hear you. Oh, just kick Jesse off, I think. Let's see. I think you're right, Kate. Whoops. What are you saying? Can everyone hear me though? Oh, all right, cool. Folks can hear me though. I can just chat with myself, folks. While I see all of you. I think Jesse was gonna ask, what my background was. What's your story exactly? So I decided that a while back, when I was doing computer software and the programming and stuff, I decided that it was no longer a passion of mine. So I had sold everything I had. Oh, here's Jesse.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jesse's back, man. I decided to just go into my body.
Yeah, you did well, man. What was wrong? I was just kicked out. All right, but that's fine.
Weird.
So I was just asking you, tell me a little bit how you ended up in PR. That was my question, but you already started answering it. So
yeah, I quit my software engineering job, moved out to Silicon Valley, and I was trying to figure out how to do PR and start businesses, because that was all the rage in 2006, 2007. And my girlfriend, my wife now, back then, wanted to move out to get her master's degree. I'll kind of follow, get my MBA, and try and find something that I was kind of passionate about. I didn't know what it would be. And I just literally, there's an alumni at the MBA program who was number 20 at LinkedIn. And I desperately wanted to work with him because he was starting a startup and he was going to raise money. And this was 2007. And well, there's going to be a crash, but I just worked myself up to try and get a job, but I had no experience. And so he told me if I put up a Wikipedia page up for the company, I could get a free internship for 2 years. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And so I put one up, and then the editors just said funding or anything. And I struggled, but I kept it up, and I got an internship, and I made up all sorts of stuff about the guy, like he was a mecca or something. And anyway, I got my free internship. We raised $9 million until the financial crash, and it was a wild ride. It was fun. It was fun.
Cool. And do you think it kind of like having that non-traditional kind of like road to PR kind of helped you along the way, or like do you sometimes think like, oh, it actually would have been better that I kind of had the basics before I dove in?
No, I think he was a DIY PR dude. So he was always like doing it himself. He never had a formal background in it. And I think that's what made him stand out from everyone else who had a traditional background in PR, because his approach was always unique, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just following his footsteps. He was coaching me in all these different tactics and stuff. So
cool. But then you like just like us, like as a like a software developer that's active in the PR industry, like how do you look at that industry today? Like what's your outlook? Like are you positive for the future? What do you think makes PR unique towards like other kind of areas in communication?
I think relationship building, and I'll share some examples of all this stuff later on, but I think relationship, like literally, if you were going to build genuine relationships with journalists versus just pitch them an idea and get them to cover it and then forget about them, is what would make your pitches unique, stand out from the rest. Professionals, consultants, SEO folks that are pitching, press, journalists, bloggers, podcasters, and building the relationship. I always say, like, say the pitch out loud before you send it, right? Because if you don't say it out loud, then you're not unique usually. Usually you're not unique. I suffer from this all the time. You know, I'll get in there into like a customer account, like editing a pitch, and I'll be like, oh, this sounds so generic. Why don't I just say it out loud? And something happens. When you say it out loud, something happens. You're like, I would never say this out loud to a person, but all of us would put stuff into writing that we'd never say out loud to a person face to face. Even on a video call like this, you'd never say stuff like that outside.
So you cannot start with hope you're doing well today. That's not something you do in a pitch, right?
Yeah,
cool.
Or like, hey, what's up? You know, I checked out your blog, and I really love like this article. Can you please, you know, mention it? You know, my article and your article or something like that. You know, guy, he went out to and he literally walked up to people and he spoke out email pitches to them, and it was hilarious. The video got 100,000 views on LinkedIn. There's literally like, hey, what's your calendar looking like? Can we book a time? We can talk about next like 100 trends for 2020, and maybe you can link to me later on, something like that. Person would be looking at him and well, like, what are you talking about, dude? He's like, I read your article. It was absolutely fantastic. We have this new company launching. Would you at all? And people would be like, he did it at also at events like journalist events and stuff. So
yeah, cool. But that's actually like something that's kind of a guideline. Like say the pitch out loud, try it, even if it's maybe just with your colleagues or like with your wife. You just try and see if they understand it and it makes sense. And also like maybe ask 3 times why should they care, right? Why should they care about these things, right? I think that's something that especially if you're like working for a client and the client is really like deep into their material, they think everybody automatically cares about what you're sharing, but that's not the case, right? You need to kind of tailor it to the person that you're pitching it. Is that something that you see as well?
Yeah, literally, like I would say personalize it up front in the beginning, you know, like I'll show this right here and I'll read it out loud, but like anybody who's watching this, you'll see like my email. Hey, Dmitry, I was just reading through your article here. Great stuff. I know this, you mentioned email list building. We recently wrote an article. Can you this page? It's like, oh, geez, like like they just read my post, why would I link to them? I don't even know them, right? This one is even worse because they didn't even put my name in there. It's hi, criminally perfect Tom team. It's just like horrible. Like it's like totally a mail merge. I hope you're well. I have contributed to various pieces. I want to write for your art, for your blog. It's just like insanity. And sometimes like you'll get all like even Larry Kim. This is somebody like pitching as him, but this guy who poses as Larry Kim works for him, trying to get links. He's like, "Hey,
maybe tell for the people that don't know Larry Kim who he is. So should people have a little bit of background?
One streamer, really large games in Star space, and so he is obviously trying to build links. To get an email from him saying, I'm the CEO, I stumbled across your article, insightful topic, we have an article, let me know if it would be a possible link, like straight up, not even like, I'd like to do some kind of partnership with you or something, just straight up in the first cold email to say this. It's like really taste to know like a well-known startup space to be doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
People are just all over the place, right? And this is like a generic pitch that I always see. It's like, hey, and it's like, I'm writing on behalf of Ericsson India story or smart cities for India as a country to progress. And it's like one paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, bullets, and it's all about him. And it's like most of these pitches saying are not personalized. They're not talking about me, like as a person receiving this pitch. It's mainly like, what are they doing? And you'd never say this. Like if this guy had to walk up to me and say all this, you can't even like, I would leave, but it'll be the second sentence. So that's what a lot of times that I see is like, people just forget to.
And is it mainly the kind of SEO link builders that are kind of making these mistakes, or in more like PR context, do you see this happening as well, or is it really
definitely PR context? I see this mainly in PR context, also SEO. Like I mentioned, the first three were mainly SEO. Kind of like this pitch was like, hey, I want to write for a publication. Like this guy's pitching a whole story. But the problem becomes is that he's jumping through like, what's my beat? How does this relate to my cause? What's the story headline? And it's way too long, right? And so it needs to be more kind of like personalized to the actual topic at hand, such as like, I did something like I promoted you, I want to quote you. This is a common way to kind of counteract all that and say, hey, I want to quote you in my article. And this is a great way to start a conversation with a journalist. This guy runs a blog, not an editor-in-chief or anything, but he calls this the Scam Detector Media. And he says, hey, I'm an editor-in-chief of Scam Detector Media, a platform that exposes the world's most notorious scams. And we educate consumers on how to use scams. And he kind of was mentioned here and there, but he's publishing. I was looking for relevant quotes, and he bumped into this article, and it fits nicely. And he wants to reference that article, and he's just asking if he can do that. And that's a great way to start conversations, I think, a lot of times with
because
folks.
Is it because you're giving something already instead of like asking for something? Is that kind of the trick?
Give and then ask later on. People do this with Quora a lot too. They'll answer something on Quora and then say, hey, I just used the article to reference on Quora, and then ask later on. Because it's much easier. Like I would walk up to somebody and say, hey, love your article, I'd love to reference it in my blog post, would that be at all cool with you? It's even like most people don't do this, right? It's like even like a very well-mannered sort of email. Most people just reference and just link to it. But the idea here is to build that relationship. Oh, okay, great. They said yes. Okay, then I'll send them the link when it's ready. Then I'll ask them for their feedback on it. I might include some of that in my email. All those touch points are building that relationship with that person. The more touch points you can have, the better, right? Eventually, that person is going to click on a link in your signature just to check out who is this guy from Scam Detector, right?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I like a few steps back now. Like how did you kind of like figured out the power behind pitching? Like what was kind of what got you hooked on it? And you clearly hooked on it, but like what was the thing where you said like, whoa, this is really something powerful? Like when was that moment?
Yeah, I think when I was an intern and Murnal was coaching me, and we got on Wall Street Journal, and I might be able to pull up the article, but it was like insanity for Walt Mossberg. If you remember, he was sort of the tech reporter of Wall Street Journal throughout 90s, even 80s. He later on, him and Kara Swisher started All Things Digital. They had a big conference. Now, you know, like it's a big name. And so Walt Mossberg, he used to run something, Mossberg's Mailbox. And this was, everybody wanted to be in that. And in 2008, I wrote an email, and we got featured. Crossloop was the company's name, but we got featured on, I might be able to pull it up here, but on Wall Street Journal, and on an entire, like, we were like on media, on video, on TV. And I thought, just from my pitch, and I'll quickly screen share here if you can see. This was the video that we got featured by Walt Mossberg about Crossloop. It was like huge, you know, back in the day, to be on Fox, Mossberg. This was like never
happening
about Crossloop, and it was insane for us. Like we're just trying to hire maybe the 7th or 8th employee. We didn't have any funds for fancy PR firm, and for us to Fox News and then having this fancy article about Crossloop, and just literally, I wrote a personal email to him, and I just commented on his other articles and included them in ours, and really kept emailing until he said, "Hey, what do you guys do?" And I was like, insane. Like, I didn't know. I wrote another email to Ashton Kutcher before, and I got him to respond. And like emailing these big name folks, getting through to them, building relationships like that, I thought, you know,
but I'm keeping emailing. I think this is sometimes like a sensitive topic, because you mentioned like you emailed him like multiple times to basically get his attention. Like is there kind of something like a limit when you say like, listen, I cannot follow up anymore, or like do you have some guidelines around how you guys kind of like deal with that?
Yeah, so I usually look at it as, hey, you're emailing once, and then you can do 1 or 2 follow-ups until somebody has to respond. So in the first, everything is open tracking, click tracking, and response tracking. So in the first email, I'll send 15 to 20, and I'll see what my open rate is. Now, the first thing...
15 to 20 like contacts.
Emails.
Yeah.
And your number one thing to do anything with any email pitches is the subject line. Forget the actual pitch itself, subject line, and the open rate. That's all you're trying to experiment with in the 15 emails there. Those 15 emails, subject line. And figure out whether that subject line is getting 50 to 70%, right? And that's usually on our is what we see as a good campaign gets, right? Because the subject line is hot. It has to be the headline of the article you want them to write, or something like scoop, I see that a lot, and then data on scoop, column, story on, whatever. So those are the pitches that do well. But essentially, get the subject line tight. Make sure that you're getting 50 to 70% in those 15 to 20 pitches. And then I would go and work on the actual pitch. And that's where you want to look at open rate versus response rate. So response rate should be 15, 20% at least on a very good pitch. So I would say, yeah, I would stick with that, because in the pitch itself, it should be less than 200 words, and it should be very much 2 lines or something about the person you're emailing, of personalization. And then right after that, you get a little bit of what your ask is, like what you're doing with that person. And then literally just like a sign off. No, not a lot of links or anything like that. And then the signature at the end. So that's very typical. I can show you like examples of that, but
yeah, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. And is this like I think we're kind of on board there, but I know that in Just Reach Out, like there's no mass mailing there either, and like we're in the same page, like relationship building as well. So it's not that you send out generic emails, right? It is always personalized. You know who you're pitching, and you know what you want or want to reach out to them, what you want to get across, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like very, very, very targeted to a specific person based on what they've covered or done before or written about. So without knowing what they've written about recently, you shouldn't really respond to them. Or in our outreach, we always guide people, hey, you got to be responding to something that they've done, because now we have all these tools and ways to find journalists. So we need to figure out what have they done recently, and then respond to it or reference that somehow, right? In that example, Soren, he was like, hey, I want to quote this article you read in my piece, right? Or I want to promote it on Quora or something. That's how you kind of can use that as a jumping point, you know?
Okay, there's a question here, which is maybe like
Sure.
we can take in. So how often should you be looking at reaching out if we are doing our own PR, and how much time should we plan on spending a week? If you talk about like that personalization, it does take more time, right? Because if you're on 15 emails, all 15 need to be personalized. You need to start with research first, right? How does that process work with you?
So for me, it starts with, who do I want to build relationships with? Which publications do I want to go after? It all starts from that. It's not a list of, hey, I want a list of tech reporters, right? I want a list of Bitcoin reporters because I have a Bitcoin app. It's which specific publications am I going to build relationships with? And what am I going to do with those articles later on once they're published? So a lot of times I want a very nice, meaty post, because I'm not just going to get traffic from it and about it. I'm going to keep feeding ads into that article to keep getting more and more and more relevant traffic out of it, to keep and keep converting it. So I'm in it for the long term. I want very meaty pieces, and I want very few of them. So I become strategic, and I'm like, all right, I want a relationship with TechCrunch. I want a relationship with Business Insider. I want a relationship with Fortune. I'll identify 3 or 4 publications. And then within those publications, I'll identify 10 or 15, maybe 10 contacts, sometimes less, maybe 5. And then I'm going to dive a little deeper into each one of those 5 contacts to see sort of what is it that they're, writing about? What are they talking about? How are they, intersect with what I have? I just show you an example because I'm very example oriented. I don't like to just kind of talk about advice, but here's an article on my blog, but this is Daryl. He writes for TechCrunch. Again, in my mind, I'm like, all right, I want to talk to Daryl. I want to build a relationship with Daryl. And so I look him up. I check out his information. He lists. So I'm like, okay, what has he recently written about? I see that, hey, he's writing about Hue light bulbs, and I email him a demo of how to use Hue light bulbs with an API. Now, I don't know much about this. I just literally had to Google around, I saw that he hasn't covered any of this before, and I'm like, hey, man, and he says, hey, this is awesome, thanks, right? And so this is a beginning of a relationship, which I call, hey, relationship with TechCrunch, right? Similar thing I do with Quora, where, hey, there's this woman, Rebecca, who wrote an article about how to pitch journalists. So I go on Quora, I find what are some common beginner mistakes content marketers make. I answer the question, I reference her article, and then I email her and say, hey, I referenced your article in a Quora question, and I tweeted about it. I love your article, right? And then she responds. And these are conversation starters. So, I mean, she was VentureBeat, but I'm pretty strategic. So now I got a TechCrunch guy and a VentureBeat person. I got these two relationships. Now I need to continue building them a little bit until they ask me back, right? Kind of like with Walt. So an hour a day, 2 hours a day, minimum, I say between 1 hour and 2 hours, most of our customers. But, you know, if you want more of these, I'd invest, you know, more time, but I'd say a very minimum hour and a half hour.
Yeah. So, but what you say is that you need to be very focused with the people that you want to build that relationship, because they, and then really keep at it, right? Don't kind of just send them a one-off email, but keep kind of building all up, keep adding value over time, build the relationship, and then you can start like getting something in return. But you can't get the return without the initial build-up, correct?
You just don't want to ask too early. That's the common mistake. Like you're itching, right? You want to close that, and you want to sell. Like you're a salesman in a way. You're as a PR person, you're selling, and so you want to want to make sure that you get that sale. But just build that relationship a little bit. Don't go too long. You know, like make it genuine. Just make sure that it kind of fits.
Yeah. I think what we kind of say and see as well is that the from address is almost as important as the subject line itself, right? Because basically, if they already know you, you have so much advantage already, and then they may kind of spend already there. But the difficulty is, of course, and this is like a question as well, like, how do you get that started? And I think you've answered this already kind of a little bit before, but like do you sometimes also use social media to kind of like start reaching out to them, or start kind of interacting with them before you actually go ahead and start reaching out?
I usually use Twitter and social media as a quick ping if I don't get an email response back. I use email as a primary method of reach. I just have had better luck with it. I know that there's many platforms out there that are kind of using as a primary way to, or LinkedIn now. We're getting more and more LinkedIn platforms that are using LinkedIn as a primary mode of contact with a journalist. I usually do an email, and then if nothing, then I'll see how active they are on Twitter, and a quick ping on Twitter as a DM. Typically, they're using Twitter semi-personal use, semi-business, and so they don't typically like to be pinged too much on Twitter. And so I use it as a quick follow-up with editors, bloggers, journalists, in that kind of
makes
way.
sense. There are some more questions coming in, like how does like a journalist pitching to a journalist is different than, for example, a blogger or a podcast or like webinars? Like do you feel that in essence like the basics remain the same, but maybe you have like different details, or do you think like no, it's a completely different approach that we need to go?
I usually say it establishes credibility. So up front in your first line of the pitch, you can say, hey, I'm a journalist, or I'm a, I write for Entrepreneur, Forbes, whatever it may be. It helps you establish credibility, and they will read the pitch more thoroughly. It's easier to get them to read to the second or third line in the pitch. If you say in the first, I wouldn't start showing all the columns that you have and all the information about what you do. But, a pitch like fellow entrepreneur, journalist, scoop, read data, something like that would get them to open it. When you say, hey, I write for these publications, I got interesting for you, they would probably open it and check it out. I think that's the extent of kind of where it sort of ends, and then you need to figure out how this is going to serve them and their audience, and whether you want to co-author a story. I usually I write for Entrepreneur and TechCrunch and Forbes, all these different publications myself. And so what I typically do is I'll go out and I'll just link to journalists. I want to build a relationship with them. In my next column, I'll reference them, I'll throw their quote in, and then I will outreach and say, hey, Joe, just linked to you, love, just promoted in blah, 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 right? And so that is usually the best way to start conversations with journalists or any kind of bloggers and stuff. Just literally reference them in the article itself. I just did this in Read Write Web, and it just works so well.
And this is something that I noticed as well. Like, you are an avid guest writer, right? So you have kind of like built that relationship with the specifications in with the media in your area. Like, how much of an advantage does this give you? Do you think it's worth that people invest their time in building up their own writing skills and doing guest blogs in media that are relevant for the brand that they're working for?
I think so. I mean, before I ran Just Reach Out, the SaaS platform, I've been doing PR for a while on my own, and I've been consulting people on doing this. And so I've been building up my brand, my reputation online for probably 10 years now. We've published over 400 articles. This is with my 10 writers that help me write. So I usually outline the pieces. I have a detailed outline. They'll fill in my outlines, then I'll go and edit. That's our process. But we write for a lot of different publications. And so I catalog all of them here on my website. So I have a lot of columns like Small Business Trends, Read Customers, the Marketing Institute, Intuit. And so it goes on and on. For me to maintain all of these, I'm doing this mainly now to build more relationships with journalists, bloggers, so that, later down the line, I can learn from them what they need and what they want to have in their columns, and build a better platform for our customers. That's my main passion behind doing this. I no longer am consulting people on how to do PR, or I'm teaching people. I'm doing like coaching, but I'm not like doing PR outreach for them. But a lot of these articles is also a way to sort of build relationships by mentioning somebody. I will mention somebody like this, saying, hey, this is what this person is amazing. And this pretty cool story, actually. A guy found that flattenthecurve.com, the URL was up for sale because nobody was doing anything with it. So he bought it and he put up some very basic data on it. It got covered by ABC News, and then he got people reached out and started putting together more comprehensive data on COVID and stuff. But mentioning stuff like this and highlighting people and building relationships with folks is sort of what I love doing. And I always urge, like, hey, invest, as a PR professional listening to this, invest some time into getting a column somewhere. It's not necessarily to directly promote your clients, because that the editor's going to see right through it. It's literally to build more relationships with more publications and just build a brand for yourself. This brings in new clients. This helps you build more relationships so that you can tell your clients how to pitch them at other outlets, and it's a great way to sort of build relationships.
Yeah, cool, makes sense. And I think that's just something that like we are pretty kind of like strong on as well, is that like you need to have an idea on who you're pitching, right? And that like the kind of approach where still lots of PR practitioners are in, like they have their Excel contact list, they have their press release, and they just blast it out to everyone. That's just simply not working. It doesn't work anymore, right? Because if I talk with journalists, they tell me they get like over 100 like pitches a day, right? So it's about selecting the things that really, and it's not just about the subject line, it's also about who's sending me this, right? Where is this coming from? Okay, so this is definitely something that we kind of see as well. So this is definitely something interesting. Being part of the community and building those relationships, that's kind of what PR like is all about, and even used to be stronger. Like it sometimes feels that we like evolved kind of a little bit to just like marketing. We started looking at them with their fancy mail campaigns and started copying that a little bit. But do you feel that we sometimes like somewhere lost the relationship building, or do you feel it's still there if you look at your customers?
I think we just become too like ad driven or something, because with pitches coming out these days, it's like reads like an ad, it sounds like an ad, it almost is an ad for customers, because it's become so easy to build lists, contact lists, target lists, because mining data has become so easy that you know, with snap of finger, I can get a list of 1,000 contacts, and the thinking of, hey, I got 5,000 contacts and I can just email all of them. And there's tricks to doing that, right? People spin up different domains, they'll create emails at those domains, they'll burn the domain by emailing 10,000 people at once in 24 hours. They don't care because it's a dummy domain. They just got 10,000 emails out, and now they got some conversion rate of, you know, and it's quick, it's easy money. It's very quick for a PR professional to just hit up tons of people, get 10 responses, and show that to a client and get them featured on TechCrunch or CNN or something, right? And they can rinse and repeat. And then maybe I should get another list. Maybe I should get more tools. But it's just doing a disservice to the journalists in general.
and also to PR, right? Because every time like someone kind of sells you a list, they make that list less effective, because more people kind of start spamming those people, like the less effective their mailbox becomes, right? So I think we're kind of on the same track, is that like buying a list is definitely not kind of like the best way forward. But of course you need to start somewhere, right? And that's kind of like a little bit the hard part. And there are some questions coming in here as well. There are some questions coming in here, like here we go. I need to reach, for example, a very specialized sector, which would require building new relationships from scratch, which is great that you want to do that. In your experience, how long will this take?
A relationship, you can build it in maybe, is there a specific sector, the person said, industry?
No, it's not. It's not here.
Okay.
The sector.
But
so, no.
I would say give it 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes you can do it in less than 2 weeks if you're really good at it. I mean, I can probably get it down to 2 weeks myself, but you really got to pamper that person up front. Just, you're trying to get that reciprocity going, right? And so you want to like literally knock them off their feet with everything you've done, right?
And probably also a lot of dependent on how big your brand already is, how like knowledgeable they know, how big you are in the sector. Like this is also like related, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Like if you can show other articles that you've written, if you've been featured somewhere else, then immediately you get that, you know, legitimacy. And so it's a little bit easier if you're a nobody, if you've done absolutely nothing ever before, it's a little harder, right, to do that, or you don't have anything out there, to prove that you've done stuff before.
So I think there's a question here, and this is interesting, like for both the platforms that we founded. So like, what's the difference between using distribution platforms and basically kind of like buying attention by like putting it on a wire, or like buying like a media list, versus kind of relationship building platforms?
Well, I think it's long-term game. That's what you're going for. So you're not going for that. I'm going to try and get a ton of stuff out there and then hope somebody picks it up and shares it, right? You're trying to build a relationship where, if that person leaves and they go to Wall Street Journal or some other publication, that person will introduce you to somebody at a contact there before they leave. Like, you want to get to that level with that person. And that requires time, but the benefit of that is usually greater than if you just got some client published in some publication. So you kind of have to weigh the two. I mean, do both, I'd say, but I've always been the relationship person, and so I've always tried to build them and then also maintain them, so that I can use that down the line. Who knows, later on, you might become a contributor to that publication. That reporter or journalist will introduce you to the editor. It could go any different ways. I've done amazing with these relationships. The TechCrunch guy would leave, they'd go to CNN, they'd introduce me to a producer. I know the producer. It can go lots of different ways. So you just...
And I think that's something, and I completely agree there, and that's basically the reason why we're building a PR CRM, because we feel that that's like important as well. But if you kind of like see that the long term is oftentimes, because lots of people want it now, they want results tomorrow or even yesterday, and they don't see like that longer game. Do you feel that that's sometimes hurting like the PR industry as well a little bit, that they're so keen on and so much under pressure to have results now that they don't see the value anymore in building that relationship, or don't have the time for it anymore?
I think we should just go back to the research of journalists, right? So I'm screen sharing this link and we can share it later on. But this is a study that Fractal did. You know about this. Some of you guys that are listening to this might have heard this. So Kelsey and the team there are really good friends of mine. I was just on their podcast for the second time, and I've been promoting them a lot. But in this study, 100 journalists, and in the study, journalists say, hey, we prefer being pitched on email, and we prefer to actually collaborate on an asset or a piece of content rather than get a finished version of a pitch or whatever. They say 64 said personal connection with an outreach specialist, more important. Prefer to be pitched in the morning. Publishers would rather collaborate on assets. So this is like just telling us, and this is journalists voicing their opinion, saying, hey, be personalized, pitch me something which we can work together on. We love data, there's just a lot of stuff coming at us. There's more insights in this whole study, which is actually pretty cool. But I would really kind of go back to the data and just say, all right, prefer, and how, what do they actually write about? And most of them need data and insights, and they want the personal connection. And just give them kind of what they want. Don't disappoint the rest of them, while some of them might respond, because you do that, then everyone else would do that. And I think it's just good and sadder because our pitches are just gonna start going to spam. The other thing that happens, most people don't realize this, but your emails will actually stop being delivered to people's inboxes if you do this too much. If you send emails that are the same, like literally your headline, your subject line, your first 4 lines of your email, if that's too much, if it's the same, the email service provider like Gmail, Outlook, they will literally classify you as a bulk sender, move you into a whole bunch of grading system, and then you'll get into spam, promotional tabs a lot more. You'll have a lot more issues and problems.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. But that's the same thing that we've basically seen when we did the survey, and I think Kate can share the link as well over there, is that, of course, like it's like the journalists are changing so quickly. So whenever you go and kind of buy like that list, from the moment you buy, it's already outdated. Kind of that's the first thing. If you then just send them all, like everyone sent the same email to all of them, you're not going to have great deliverability. So you basically are, because they are getting blocked. Like we see it as well, like that these spam filters are getting smarter and smarter, right? So you cannot, it's kind of logical that they're there, because they're luckily there to keep email usable, right? So in essence, that's why like just blind distribution probably will never work.
We have like percent similarity comparison on the pitches for our customers. So when somebody's sending out pitches, our algorithm is tracking like how similar is this to this one, to this one, to this one. If it's 85 or above similarity check between your last like 20 pitches, 30 pitches, we're flagging that account, letting that customer know that, hey, you're going to have issues and problems if you keep going this way. You got to change up the pitch more in the beginning. And our customers typically like say, hey, I read your article on blah, 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 and I really enjoyed controversial point. That's like the lead in. But I always like, listen, you have to like personalize your stuff now, because literally you're going to get yourself on a blacklist 100%. Like somebody, if one person clicks a blacklist button or like spam button, you get on that blacklist, it's going to take you like 6 months to get off of it. It's brutal. Sometimes you don't even know it, right? You don't even know it, but that's why,
like, yeah, getting a visibility on how deliverability rates are is kind of already essential, right? Because like often people kind of start using a platform, and they kind of like use Presley for the first time to get on the phone with me, and they say, listen, I just have an open rate of, I don't know, 50%. It's impossible that just half of my people are actually opening my emails, which is kind of like weird that they had the expectation that everyone was looking at their emails that they were sending out. But that was kind of the expectation already. So it's kind of funny to see as well. So yeah, before we move into questions, let's kind of like land a little bit on like the thing that you've been building past few years, and how we kind of get to know each other. Just reach out, like you that's kind of your software that helps people pitch. What's the goal, and like a little bit more of a difficult question, how is it different than something like Presley, which is a PR CRM?
Well, Just Reach Out was always built to help people build relationships. So 7 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be part of a company where we built it from nothing to 40 million page views a month. This was a company called Polar. We were acquired by Google. And the whole kind of genesis, the whole process of how we did that, I'll show you the case study on sort of like the PR behind it. But this was the only pitch that I did. There was only 3 or 4 of us. And I was part of the team, and I would look up tech meme like this, and all of you guys can probably know what tech meme is. I would look at a story that's breaking, and I would create a quick little poll, and I would pitch that poll to the journalists in hopes that, hey, they might use that data later on, or at least I can build a relationship with. We had a polling app, so this really worked nice for us. A lot of you guys don't, most of you don't. You can use other polling apps, but this worked really well. We got on all major publications, and within 2 years, we were acquired by Google. And so I used this sort of relationship building methodology to launch a course on how to do PR. And then later on, I decided to sort of build the whole tool around it. And cool. The tool was all about relationship building, and you making it easier. Like, most of us listening to this are like, okay, this relationship thing is cool, but what do I say to them? Like, what is a journalist like? I don't know what to like. Yeah, I want to do it, but so the tool will show you like, oh, here's what they've recently asked about on social, or here's what been covering a lot about and tweeting, and this is where you fit in, or here's what the ask they have, and link they have, here's a typo they have, here is a problem area that they have, whatever it may be, it becomes easier for you to start the conversation. So the discovery is easier, the outreach is easier, but it's much more on a personalized level, like a personalized outreach relationship building tool.
Cool. All right. Yeah, interesting. What other tools are you using to kind of like get to pitching success?
Well, as we were talking about, I was going to show MX Toolbox, and this is not a an actual pitching tool. It's a tool to check whether you're on a blacklist. And I say this because most of you guys, this is like the furthest in our minds as PR people to really even think about, but it's probably one of the most important ones because, hey, you know what? You probably are on a blacklist. I was on a blacklist, and you probably might have DMARC issues, which a lot of you guys have to like, what is he talking about? This is a very geeky thing that your engineers will probably know. But do me a favor, like if you remember anything from this webinar, it's a free tool. I have no affiliation with them at all. It's a great way to look up your email, but go to mxtoolbox.com after this webinar, put in your domain, check out your blacklist, whatever it may be. I think you guys should be fine because you guys don't do any spamming, but we'll be putting Presley in here, and you get a whole bunch of reporting. You can go into like blacklists and check your blacklists in here. You can even put IPs in there too. So sometimes you guys are using SendGrid, maybe they're using Gmail. So you can quickly put the IP address of your provider, your email provider, and you'll get a lot of reports on here in terms of like, hey, are you on a blacklist? Do you have a DMARC mismatch? Meaning like when you're emailing, is your signature of your email mismatching with the server? So a lot of times there's trouble. There's trouble in your emails that make sure that they don't actually wind up. So this is one of the tools that I think about that's very unique and out of the box. It's not a fancy outreach tool.
No,
but it'll remember.
It is very relevant. Like, in fact, because there's so many kind of like Presley customers in here, this is something we do for them, right? So we kind of like built this in because it's so important, right? You can only guarantee this if you kind of set this up yourself. So they don't need to worry about this.
That's good, guys.
Yeah, we check it for them. So
I do. Oh, go ahead. Go. Sorry, no more questions.
No. I want you just go ahead. I wanted to go into some of the questions. So let me see. I opened up the question tab here. Okay, this is a good one. How do you stand on calling journalists? It seems you mostly focus on text-based comms. I feel the best way to get to know someone is having an actual phone call, a conversation through the phone. Maybe this is just the case in my country, which is Belgium.
No, not only in your country. I've called journalists before. I actually, if they list their email, and I might screen share an example here. So whenever there is an email right inside the signature, that's the best way to. It's probably a way to email or to call. Example. Call Nick Vega and he puts his number down, it'll go like kind of correspond with him a bit, and if I get responses, I'll just hit him over. Some I text, and as long as there's a number there, I think it's fine because he knows that he's responding to a pitch and he's got his number there. So he would expect it. Trying to call like the main number is usually the best way. As long as there is a number, I think this is the TechCrunch guy, but like usually a number, and so you would say, okay, like if he has a number, then great. Don't do that.
No, exactly. Okay, cool. Well, I think, let me see if there's another one that we can kind of take here. There is something. There was some. Dmitry, you mentioned that you would kind of follow up with how to write the subject line. Let's get 70% opens. I
Yes.
think like people are definitely interested in how they can achieve that, and I'm pretty sure you have some kind of articles on there, so we can kind of share those and follow up with the team.
Yes.
I think that we've kind of went through it, unless there's anything else, Dmitry, you want to kind of cover.
No, I mean, like, listen, like, it takes time and effort. You might listen to all this and I feel like it's this guy, you know, I love what he's doing. He's got a lot of success with it, but this is a lot of work for us to really change our workflow completely. And I perfectly understand, you know, so all I ask is, hey, think about maybe incorporate some portions of this sort of relationship building strategy and just ask questions like, send me a pitch of yours and I'll tell you what I think, how, because it's a little hard and overwhelming to get started with this. Identifying the problems is one thing, but really changing your pitches to really be valuable to journalists and not asking too much is hard. And so, and especially like some people were saying, like, this takes a lot of time and effort. So usually I try and test things without investing too much time and effort, just by seeing what works, what doesn't, and not really diving, you know, like using up too much time to really test. And then if something is catching, then I'll try and use that.
Okay, cool. Well, that was pretty amazing, Dmitry. I've kind of wrote some stuff down, like say the pitch out loud. Like quotes, ask for quotes. That's really like a good pitch. Like work with a subject line to get 50 to 70% open rates. So I think these were all interesting things. So awesome job. You did a really great job. I think like lots of people had a lot about it. Yeah. So we will definitely follow up with all your details. Where can people find you? What's the best way to keep in touch with you?
Just reachout.io. You'll find it's Dmitry at justreachout.io is my email. And justreachout.io, there's a contact on there, so you can reach out that way.
Cool. So we'll follow up with an email with all those details in there. And then I think we will do a quick write-up of this as well and share the necessary links. And thanks again, Dmitry, for coming on. As always, we'll send something Belgian your way. Maybe there will be chocolates, maybe something else. We'll figure something out.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank you. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome, right?
This was great. So, I love the chat and everyone else joining in.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone for asking your questions. Thanks everyone on the chat for being so active. As always, we'll follow up with a recording and a write-up which will be shared probably tomorrow or later this week. If you're interested, definitely sign up on our website, pressly.com/PR-roundtable to get all the details on the next roundtable that we're planning, and we'll keep you posted through email. Have a great afternoon. Hope you enjoyed the sun. Bye, everyone.
See you.
Bye, Dmitry.
Bye. All right.
Here we go.